I think one issue is regarding this death of a partner. You mentioned that if upon death, if any property or any money is received by the legal heir, then the legal heir is not a specified person, therefore it will not apply. But I just wanted to check from you whether
in the hands of two people. That does not mean that it's double taxation. It can still be a single tax.
And also, in terms of the remaining partners, so if let us say there are some partners retire, and that results in Section 9B getting attracted in the hands of the firm because the firm is, say, distributing some assets. Is there also any tax liability on the remaining partners? Like suppose their profit share, etc., goes up.
No, sir. I have not quoted it because this itself would took so much of time. There are judgments on that point also prior to 1987, which says the remaining partners will not be regarded to have transferred following Banki Lala from Allahabad High Court, which says that remaining partners would not be regarded as having transferred their rights in the property.
Right. And I think the new sections, whether it is 9B or 45(4), as we discussed, is not imposing any kind of a levy on the partners, whether it is retiring partner or the continuing partner. So therefore, the position prior to 87 will continue to apply here. One more question which I'm seeing, Sriram, is that I think you already addressed that. Just to reiterate, if there is a distribution or withdrawal of the assets by the partners, while they continue to be in the partnership, there is no retirement. But suppose they just happen to withdraw some portion of their capital, and then there is no change in the profit sharing ratio. Is that transaction liable to tax under any of the sections?
Definitely, in my view, not taxable under 9B because the transaction does not fall within reconstitution. The only option that the revenue would have to subject it to tax is under 45(1). But in 45(1), as Malabar Fisheries Supreme Court says, such transaction will not be regarded as transfer. So the levy would be outside Section 45(1). The reason being that this income is not, therefore the next line of argument the assessee will have to take is not income from a source and therefore not liable to tax.
I think there's also one interesting question about applicability of 56(2)(10).
That will have to be seen separately.
So
separate.
Just one thing I wanted to mention over here is 56(2)(10). I think the precondition for that, first of all, that there has to be receipt of, say, we talk about money for that matter. There has to be receipt of money without consideration. Now, typically, in a case of a retiring partner, it always comes with the consideration in the form that he is agreeing to retire from the firm. So that itself is a form of consideration. So then the only question is about how much, how that act of agreeing to retire, how it is to be valued. So I think it is not a clear-cut case where somebody can say that there is no consideration. Definitely there is a consideration because if I am agreeing to retire from a firm, it's a contractual promise which I'm making to agree to retire on the terms. Therefore, according to me, it is definitely not a case of no consideration, but how to value it and whether the amount which is agreed to be paid by the remaining partners to the retiring partner, I think 56(2)(10) application will not be that easy. So I'm sure we will have good arguments to rule that out. I'm also seeing a question that whether it is better to close down the business and liquidate all the assets, dissolve the firm, and then make rather than transferring the assets. I think any distribution upon dissolution is covered. And in any case, if you sell the assets, those assets, the sale of assets will in any case be liable to capital gain tax in the hands of the firm. So I'm not sure whether it will work out better. Maybe on a case-to-case basis can be examined. But if you really go through that circular, I think the point which they try to make is they are trying to equate a situation where the firm sells the asset and thereafter distributes cash. Whatever will be the tax implication in the hands of the firm, they want to equate and they want to bring the same position, even if they happen to distribute the assets as such. So therefore, the intention seems to be to equate the two situations, but maybe on a case-to-case basis, we can definitely examine that. I'm also seeing a few more questions here. I'm not sure that they already covered it. Yeah, I think this is one interesting question, Sriram. Should the partner withdraw capital balance before retirement to reduce the incidence? I think we did discuss it. You want to comment on that? Definitely, I think as we discussed, that there are still certain, I won't say loopholes, but probably there are certain venues which are available. We also have to be mindful of the GAR provisions. So how exactly to handle it? We have to see the facts. What is the justification of that? When it happens, the timing of it. Does it happen just before the retirement, or there is a considerable time gap? I think lot many factors will be there. But yes, I'm sure as we move forward, this avenue is, I'm sure, going to be explored by the consultants as well as by the taxpayers. Any other questions, Sriram, that you see we need to take up? I think we have mostly covered the questions that I'm seeing over here in the Q&A box. If there are any more, I think definitely we can take it up and address. I think I'm also seeing about if stock is withdrawn, whether then also 9B will apply. So I think it will again depend on, it's not a mere case of withdrawal of stock which will attract, but that if the stock is being given to the partner upon one of the events which are listed there, that is either it is a case of a reconstitution or a dissolution. Ultimately, we will again come back to the same question. If the partner is continuing and he takes away some of the stock by adjusting his capital balance, etc., that is not a situation which is covered. But as Sriram said, that may in any case be regarded as a transfer. And for example, if it is we are talking about stock in trade, then it may be subject to business profit. Am I right, Sriram?
Yes, sir. Right.
Yeah, I think Sriram, would you like to address this? I think you did touch upon it, that in case reconstitution happened 4 years ago, but the actual transfer of asset is happening in financial year 2021, whether it is taxable. Would you like to address that?
As I pointed out, this slide, Section 43 of the UK Partnership Act says, once the partner retires, the money receivable from the firm ceases to be capital. It turns into a debt. So 4 years back when the partner retired and the books were recasted at that time, they would have recorded the balance payable to the retiring partner as debt payable to the partner. When the money is being paid today, it is not paid in lieu of retirement of the partner, but it is in lieu of repayment of the debt. And there is sufficient jurisprudence available on this on Halsbury and other good commentaries on contract acts.
Right, sure. I think because this was one of the points I remember when the provisions had initially come, there was a lot of discussion that even the past transactions where amounts are still being paid out, or even dissolutions which have taken place and the assets are being liquidated, etc., whether this new provision will have an implication. I think what you're saying will definitely be helpful there.
Namely, on partnership also specifically says so.
Devolution of the share upon death of a partner, I think that you have already addressed. I think we have covered most of the questions. If there are any more questions, I think Sriram, probably we can definitely take it up over an email. Thank you, Sriram, I think for the in-depth research that you carried out, and which I think definitely was very interesting to hear too. I'm sure you have much more material to talk about, but I think we really had to compress it within the available time. And if there are any, I think maybe in future, maybe we can have even a slightly longer session, which should be maybe more academic, but very interesting, and maybe you will get more time to elaborate on some of the points which probably we could not cover today.
Special thanks to Mani sir and Ashok Sharma sir for pushing me to read all this.
I would like to appreciate and express my gratitude to all our distinguished speakers from Lakshmi Kumaran and Sridharan who have taken their valuable time out of their busy schedules to be here with us today. I'm sure their valuable thoughts, insights, and experiences will enable all of you to understand the impact of these changes. On behalf of Lakshmi Kumaran and Sridharan, I would like to thank you all. We look forward to seeing you in our upcoming webinars and seminars. Thank you so much, sir.